Hola, soy yo Vicky otra vez. Espero que todo bien como siempre. Ok, hoy estamos en Break the Language Barrier nivel 4. Estamos con el subjuntivo todavía, pero ahora vamos a mirar el subjuntivo pasado, imperfecto, the imperfect subjunctive. So we have been looking at the present subjunctive. And now we're going to start looking at the past or imperfect subjunctive. The times we use it are exactly the same as when we use the present subjunctive, but it's when we're talking in the past rather than in the present. So if you were saying, I hope that it rains today, that is present. Espero que llueva hoy. Yeah, but if you had said, I was hoping it would rain yesterday, that is past tense. So that would be Esperaba que lloviera ayer. So that's the only difference. So I'm not going to go through all the different times when we use a subjunctive in general, you know, the expressions that trigger it, etc. That is in the other videos explaining about the present subjunctive. So I'm not going to go into all those things again. So whenever you're not sure whether you should be using it or not, you can refer back to those. Again, you don't need the book, but they are all in the book. So they're on the videos as well. You can refer back to the videos. But I think it's better. Personally, for me, it's better to have it all written down that you can just flick back and have a look. And of course your answers are in the back in the book. So if you don't have the book, you can buy it on Amazon. It's still on offer until the end of August 2020. Oh, we won't forget this year in a hurry, will we? Okay, so let's have a look at how we make it. Now, it's an interesting one because there actually are two forms of the imperfect subjunctive. But one of them you will never hear spoken, you will only see written down. So although we're going to look at both of them because you need to recognise them, obviously if you're reading something, as you know, especially books, etc., literature, the imperfect is the other imperfect subjunctive is used quite a bit. But in speaking, the first kind. So when we come on to do the exercises, I'm only going to be using the first kind. But to start off with, I will obviously be explaining the other kind as well, because you will see that, as I say, in books, etc. So to form it, and the good news is all verbs, every single verb, no exceptions, we take the third person plural of the preterite. The other thing I quite like about these tenses, because the present subjunctive and the imperative and things like that, we have to often go back to another tense to know how to conjugate them, because we have to take, you know, the present simple, first person, and it's a good revision of previous tenses, because obviously as we go along, there's a lot of tenses to learn, and you can, you know, you sort of learn one, you feel like the one from before sort of slips out the other side. So it's very important to keep reinforcing them. We should be doing that anyway. If you're learning Spanish, just doing an exercise once, you're not going to remember everything. You're probably going to remember 20% of what you do in that first time. So you have to keep doing those exercises over and over again. You have to keep reminding yourself of the verb endings, especially unless you're in a position where you're speaking Spanish every day and using it. So that's fine. You're doing that. But if you're not in that position, then you have to keep repeating. Otherwise, you will forget things. So what I quite like about some of these tenses that rely on other tenses or take us back to other tenses for formation is that it gives us a revision. So what we're doing here is we're going back to the preterite, the past simple preterite indefinido. It's got, if you remember, that was in level 2. I mean, we have obviously carried on practicing it in the other levels, because all my levels sort of use a bit of what came before as well. But, you know, so that's quite a while ago. So it's good. We're going back to the preterite, we're taking the third person plural. Now remember, the third person plural is the they form. If when you do your conjugation in the 6 persons, it's the last one. And that in the they form, in the preterite, that normally ends in either eron or ieron. Yeah, they learned a lot, aprendieron mucho, or they spoke a lot, hablaron mucho. So it's normally aron, ieron, but you know, there are regular verbs and irregular verbs in the preterite. So it's a good revision to go back to your preterite and look at all those verbs maybe before you start doing this. So we've got some examples here in the book. We've got estudiaron, from estudiar, aprendieron, vivieron, pudieron, that's one of the irregular ones from poder in the preterite. Supieron, conduceron, that was one where we dropped the I. Durmieron, pusieron, fueron, vinieron, anduvieron. So all those, there was a third person plural in the preterite of certain verbs that we've done. So we've got taking off the ron. So estudiaron will be estudiar. That's your base. That's not the final thing. That's the base, the stem. Aprendieron, aprendie. Vivieron, vivie. Pudieron, pudie. Supieron, supie. Conduceron, conduce. Dumieron, dumie. This is your stem. Pusieron, pusie. Fueron, fue. You take the ron off, you're just left with fue. Vinieron, vinie. And anduvieron, anduvie. So you've got all those examples there on page 33 in the book. As always, I will be putting all this in description as well, for those of you who don't have the book. But if you haven't got the book, why not? Because it's so cheap at the moment, so it's better to have the book, obviously. Okay, so the endings, we've got the 2 sets of endings. So we've got the first set, which is the one that's more commonly, well, is the one that's used in speaking. And we've got ra, ras, ra, ramos, rais, ran. So we take our stem that we made on the previous page and add on those endings. Then we've got the second set, which is only used in literature, in writing, which is se, says, se, semos, says, sen. And they're, again, all here in the book, and they will be in the description. So underneath them, we've got some verbs to practice, the 2 endings. As I say, we'll practice the 2 endings just to learn them. But then after that, when we're doing examples, I will only use the first set of endings. So poner, to put. So poner in the preterite is pus. Yeah, pus is the stem. So preterite is pusieron. So we take off the ron and we've got pusier. So we've got pusiera, pusieras, pusiera, pusieramos, pusierais, pusieran. Or the second set, pusiese, pusieses, pusiese, pusiesemos, puseseis, pusesen. Easy. Then, of course, we've got ser. So ser in the preterite third person plural is fueron. So our stem is fue. Fuera, fueras, fuera. Fueramos, fuerais, fueran. And then fuese, fueses, fuese. Fuesemos, fueseis, fuese. Estar in the preterite irregular. Estuvieron, third person plural. So take off the ron. Estuviera, estuvieras, estuviera, estuviéramos, estuvierais, estuvieran. The second set, estuviese, estuvieses, estuviese, estuviésemos, estuvieseis, estuviesen. Hacer, another irregular one in the pre-treat, because they did or they made is hicieron. So we take off the ron and we've got hicie as the stem. Hiciera, hicieras, hiciera, hicieramos, hicierais, hicieran. The second endings, hiciese, hicieses, hiciese, hiciesemos, hicieseis, hiciesen. There's a lot of thurs in that. It makes you very thirsty. And then we've got the verb abrir, to open. That's a regular one. So abrieron in the pre-treat. Abriera, abrieras, abriera, abriamo, no. Abrieramos, abrierais, abrieran. Always difficult when there's a lot of vowels. Then we've got saber. That's another irregular one in the pre-treat. So we've got it would be supieron. They knew or they found out, because it changes its meaning in the pre-treat to find out. So supiera, 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 supieramos, supierais, supieran. Bit easier than the hiciera one, abrir one. And then the second type of ending, supiese, supieses, supiese, supiésemos, supieseis, supiesen. Okay, so tener, the next one. Now, that's an irregular verb. So it's tuvieron in pre-treat. So tuviera, tuvieras, tuviera, tuvieramos, tuvierais, tuvieran. And the second type, tuviese, tuvieses, tuviese, tuviésemos, tuvieseis, tuviesen. Then we've got pensar, that's regular, so in the pre-treat. So pensaron, so we take off the aron and we're just left with pens. So, sorry, we take the ron off, so we're left with pensar. Pensará, pensarás, pensará, pensaramos, pensarais, pensarán. And then I thought that was going to be easy and it turned out to be difficult. So then pensase, pensases, pensase, pensasemos, pensaseis, pensasen. Thank goodness it doesn't come up too much, that one. Then we've got decir. Decir is irregular in the pre-treat because it's dijeron, D-I-J-E-R-O-N. So we take off the R-O-N and we're left with dique. So dijera, dijeras, dijera, dijeramos, dijeréis, rais, dijeran. And then the second set is dijese, dijeses, dijese, dijésemos, dijéseis, dijesen. Wow. So yeah, it's good for me to practice them too, because they don't come up that much. So sometimes when you do want to use them, you think, oh my goodness, I haven't said that for ages, so how am I going to say that? So yeah, it's always a good practice. So we're going to look at practice B now on page 35, which is using the subjunctive, and as I say, the past subjunctive. And as I say, I'm only going to use the first one because that's the only one we'd use in spoken Spanish. The second form is only in written Spanish. So practice B, it was a shame. Number one, it was a shame that you couldn't come to the party. So in fact, I don't think I'm going to say the English, I'm just going to say the Spanish. I will put the English in the description so you know what the English is, but I'm actually just going to read out the Spanish for these. So I'm just going to make sure I'm on the right page. Because I don't want to read the wrong things out, obviously. Let's see. Present subjunctive. So it's the past subjunctive I'm looking for. obviously. Yeah, so the imperfect subjunctive. Número 1. Quería que compraran la casa. 2. Era lástima que no pudieras venir a la fiesta. Número 3. No había nadie en el hotel que nos pudiera ayudar. Número 4. No creía que pudiera ir. Número 5. Dudaban que dijera la verdad. Número 6. Pidieron que cerráramos, sorry, I can't see that actually. Pidieron que cenaremos con alguien, con ellos. I'm going to have to get some glasses, definitely. Número 7. Limpio la casa antes de que llegara yo. Número 8. Era probable que no terminarás. Número 9. No pensaba que nadie me viera. Número 10. Era terrible que estuvieran tan enfermos. Número 11. Quería que hablaran en español. Número 12. Esperábamos que no hubiera problema. Número 13. Esperaba que no estuvieras allí. Y número 14. Dudaba que fuera la verdad. Y número 15. No queríamos que supieras la verdad. Okay, so como siempre, any doubts, any problems, just let me know. And if you found the video useful, please give me a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, if you don't mind doing so. It doesn't cost any money, it's completely free. Totalmente gratuito. It just helps me out, and also you then get notifications of future videos. Okay, muchas gracias, que tengas muy buen día y te veo en el próximo video. Muchas gracias, hasta luego.